our daughters, our friends, and our loved ones. We love these people, we remember them, and we fight back, we celebrate them, and we fight back against the disease for them.
Tonight, we are the shooting stars, the fingers of lightning, the fireworks that makes the darkness insignificant, the light that illuminates the hope that one day suffering from cancer will end. Cancer is a disease that is unbiased. It knows no sex, no religion, no personality, no fairness, and no color. The only color cancer has is reflected by the ribbons we wear to support our friends and families. We all unite here tonight to reflect together on how this disease has touched our lives, whether directly or through our family and friends. Here to share her journey with cancer is Isabella Ramirez and her best friend, Angela.
My name is Isabella Ramirez, and I graduated from Bloomingdale High School last year in 2015. I first participated in Relay for Life when I was a freshman in high school back in 2012. Never would I have imagined that I would have been diagnosed with this deadly disease. It is just one of those things that you see happening around you, but it never crosses your mind that it could happen to you. On September 24th, 2014, at the beginning of my senior year, I was diagnosed with stage 3 non-Hodgkin's anaplastic large cell lymphoma, a very aggressive form of cancer. It came as a shock to me and my family because I had always been very healthy and active. I had to start chemotherapy immediately and was told I would be receiving chemo for a whole year. I was blessed to have an amazing support system as I fought my battle and to be able to partially go to school and graduate on time with my class, thanks to some amazing teachers, school administrators, and guidance counselors. I had many great opportunities that came from my cancer journey, like leading my own relay team last year, Relay for Life. And then in the fall, I was even able to attend a few college classes, with only 2 more rounds of chemo to go. I finished my 20th and final round of chemo at the beginning of September 2015, and was so thankful I had won my battle and could move on with my life. But unfortunately, not everything goes the way we want and hope it will. 4 weeks after my last chemo treatment, I had scheduled scans to make sure the cancer was gone. The night before my scans, I discovered a lump had formed on the side of my neck. I showed the doctors the next day, and they said they would review the scans because it could just be an infection. They called that night saying they saw suspicious activity on the scans, and I got a biopsy a few days later on another lump that had formed on my hip, plus a bone marrow biopsy to see what it was. Unfortunately, we did not get the news that we wanted to hear, and I had relapsed. The news was devastating and discouraging, but I tried to have hope and stay positive. The new treatment plan included a much more intense chemo, and I had to stay in the hospital a week at a time to receive. Then, because my cancer was too aggressive, I had to get a bone marrow transplant. This required me to leave my home and go to a different hospital in Gainesville, Florida, where I received even more intensive chemotherapy, plus a week of radiation, and then a bone marrow transplant from my brother Max, who happens to be a freshman here at Bloomingdale, and who also happened to be a full match, and selflessly donated his bone marrow to me so that I could live. I had to stay in the hospital for a month and a half, and when I got out, I had to stay another 2 months in Gainesville, living close to the hospital for follow-ups, and only my mom could stay with me. This was very challenging for me and my family because we could not be together very much, and it was very hard for me to be in isolation, away from my friends and my home for so long. I at least had my mom who stayed by my side the whole time and took care of me, which I will never forget. Things are a little better now that I am home with my family and friends, and further away from transplant as the days pass by. But there are still so many things I have to go through and be careful with, as I know very well how uncertain the future is, and so my fight continues. All I know is to stay positive and be grateful for things like my friends and family, sleeping in my own bed, and every day that I feel well. I'm thankful for my journey because I've learned so many life lessons and met so many people I might not have if not for cancer. My family is so much closer and stronger, and I have friends I know I can rely on, like my best friend Angela, who is standing here next to me. When I first met Bella, we didn't really talk much until the summer of 2014. We instantly became best friends. We did everything together, from working the same job, having the same school hours, and also figure skating every day together. We got to the point where we would literally spend 3 weeks straight together, and we wouldn't even get tired of it. The start of our senior year is when everything began to change. When I first found out that Bella was diagnosed with cancer, I was at a loss of words. I didn't really know how to take it. You know, you always hear stories about people who are battling cancer, but it never really hits you until somebody you love is affected by cancer. I cried the whole way home from the hospital, and I immediately said to Bella that same night, if you're gonna have to fight through this, you're not gonna do it alone. Without a second thought, I knew I would be there from beginning to end. I then tried to turn the situation into something a little better than what it was. I went to the Brandon Ice Sports Forum and sold every single bow that I owned. With the money I made from that night, I bought more bows the next day. I put the name Bows for Bella to it. And from that week, I would set up tables, sit there for hours, and sell bow after bow, raising up money all to go towards Bella and her family, and also other kids in need with the same type of situation. About a year went by, and we were both feeling on top of the world. When Bella was finishing her last chemo treatment, we started college together, ready to take everything in stride, and using what we walked through together as friends as a learning experience and move on. A few weeks into college, Bella relapsed. That week was by far one of the scariest weeks of my life, not knowing if Bella would make it or what the doctors were going to do now. By this point, I wasn't really sure what more I could do as a friend. I remember when Bella first told me what the doctors had planned to do. We sat together in the car and just cried. We thought about how far we had already gotten as friends. We thought about how far we had already gotten together as friends in this journey, and said we can't give up now.
You could do it.
By this point in the game, it was a little different. Long drives to the hospital night and day, and long hours and long phone calls, and also all the laughs that we can fit in between all the cries. It began to get harder and harder as time went by. But as I sit here tonight and think about that one night in the car when we just sat there and cried, one of the things that were said in the car was, I know it's going to be hard, it's not going to be easy at all for the both of us, but we will get through it together as friends. For me, there was no turning back to the commitment that I had made in the very beginning of it all. So put aside all the bows for Bella, and event after event, we get the opportunity to attend. The most important part of this all is being there for Bella emotionally as she fights this battle. Making sure that she always has somebody to talk to or run to is the most important thing. And even though it might tear us both down, I sit here tonight and I think back on everything we have been through as friends. We have had so many good on top of bad, and I wouldn't change anything at all. I love that I can be here tonight and relay for my best friend Bella, and I am more than happy to be here tonight as one of her many supporters.
Who do you relay for? Almost all of us, in one way or another, have been affected by cancer. Whether you yourself have been the victim or you know someone who has. I have been blessed to have such amazing friends that have supported me throughout my whole journey. However, one thing every cancer patient wants, whether they are a child, teen, or adult, is another person they can relate to who is going through the same thing. I learned quickly that connecting and being friends with other people going through the same thing is a true gift, but it is also very hard. There are two amazing people who I had the pleasure to get to know who I would like to tell you about today. The first person I want to tell you about, I met before my transplant at the hospital in Gainesville. Her name is Emily. She is a year younger than me, and she had already gone through her bone marrow transplant at the start of her treatment. It was almost 100 days post-transplant. It was so nice to talk to someone who already went through it and that I could relate to. When I was admitted to begin my transplant, right before Christmas last December, I got a message from Emily saying that she would be spending Christmas in the hospital with me because she had relapsed. She had to receive a T-cell boost from her donor and a lot more chemo. Then, on top of that, the doctor said that her only option left was a clinical trial that she qualified for at St. Jude's Children's Hospital in Tennessee. She was doing okay and went home for New Year's, and I got out of the hospital mid-January. 10 days later, I was readmitted for pneumonia, and she happened to be admitted the same day for an infection plus a severe case of graft versus host disease, which is where your cells reject your donor's cells. She was in the hospital from the end of January all the way until this past Wednesday when they finally let her go home. Fortunately, the chemo she was receiving did the trick and put her in remission, and she does not have to go to St. Jude's for now. This is what it is like to have cancer. The future is always uncertain, and we can't count on anything until there's a cure. The other person I want to tell you about was a very special friend of mine. His name is Afion, and he is also a year younger than me. I met him after my last chemo treatment before I relapsed, when I got to go on a trip to Los Angeles with him and a few other kids from the hospital here in Tampa. I thought he was one of the funniest people I had ever met. We all would always play games like Uno and Jenga in our downtime. After that trip, we all kept in contact via group chat. He was the only one of us still having to do chemo inpatient, but then I relapsed. After that, I had to stay inpatient a week at a time for chemo, but both of our chemo cycles happened to be at the same time, so it gave me a friend to have while I had to spend so much time in the hospital. We would come out of our rooms when we felt up to it and would play Uno for hours, order pizza and Chinese food, do silly crafts, talk about the Italy trip, and mess around with the nurses and techs, even though we loved them. He always beat me in Uno somehow and never let me forget it. He called himself King Uno. I had my last inpatient stay here in Tampa before I left for a transplant, and he was also admitted because he had to have surgery on his lungs because the doctors found something in there. The last week I spent in the hospital with him was a lot of fun. Angela came almost every day, and the three of us made fun by doing things like playing soccer using Afion's chest tubes as soccer goals. Which, now that I think about it, was probably not a good idea. The day I got out, Afion received some bad news from our doctors. He messaged me later saying that his cancer came back stronger than ever and could not be cured, and he was getting chemo shots, I guess, to help prolong things. I was so devastated, but I wanted him to keep fighting and not lose hope. We had plans to see each other again soon. He was supposed to be here tonight, on my team with me and my nurses. We kept in touch while I was in Gainesville to check up on each other. About 3 weeks ago, I got the news I had been so afraid to hear that he had lost his battle. I couldn't believe that the person that turned so many of my worst times into happy memories was gone. So, if you asked me who I relay for, I would not just say because I have been so personally affected by it, but for Emily and Afion. I don't want to have to lose any more of my friends to this disease. A lot of you here have the goal to graduate high school soon. Everybody our age deserves to have that option, but not everyone will get it. Not everyone will get to grow up or get to see their children grow up. This is why we need a cure now, and this is why I relay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella and Angela, for sharing. What powerful words, and all of us up here are their nurses, so we're truly affected by what she says. Oh, sorry. I recently came